Okay, we are recording, and I want to thank everybody for joining me tonight. We've gotten some pretty good reception to these virtual meetings to have some time to chat. The pandemic's been hard to navigate, and not as many of us are getting together at car shows and such. But tonight in particular, I'm very grateful that I've had three very special folks join tonight. I was given the privilege of listening to these three gentlemen as I was conducting interviews for Mustang Bullitt Generations. And to have the Mustang Chief Engineers of all three Bullitt models available this evening, we're in a very unique situation to have this. So for those of you who have gotten the books, you may have seen that each of the chiefs gave a foreword to the book. And I was hoping that they'd have an opportunity tonight to maybe expand a little bit on what they shared with me, and also take some questions from folks who may not have met them before. So with that, if I could just quickly introduce first Art Hyde, who is retired from the Ford Motor Company, but was the chief for the 2001 Bullitt model. And then Paul Randle, who currently is with Ford Motor Company, who was the chief during the 2008-2009 model. And then Carl Widmann, who is currently at Ford and worked on the 2019 and 2020 Bullitt. Now I'll ask each of the gentlemen to share a little bit about their backgrounds and their time with the Bullitt programs that they worked on. So with that, I will try to keep things moving along here. And let me go ahead and ask Art to start us off, because the 2001 model kicked the runoff. So if you'd just like to share a little bit about your time at Ford, and of course a little bit maybe about what you're doing right now, but some of the things that you shared with me in this book, it's pretty cool that we got a 2001 Bullitt Mustang at the time that we did. So Art, please go ahead, take it away.
Well, hello everybody. Thank you, Tony, for setting this up, and thank you very much for inviting me. My hair will not compete with Carl's, so I give up on that. He wins. He wins on lots of fronts. Probably beats me on the track too. So I actually retired from Ford in 2017 after 40 years. And I had a career which I would not recommend anybody do and follow on my tracks. I basically, when I got out of college, I applied to one company. There's only one company I wanted to work for. It was Ford. And I had no family who went there. I had never been to Michigan before. But I did go to the 1964 World's Fair. And at the 64 World's Fair, I just fell in love with the Mustang. And it became a quest of my life to work on the Mustang. And I didn't know at the time that they had roles called chief engineer or leader or whatever the hell it was. I just knew that I wanted to have an influence and impact on this really incredibly important vehicle to our society. And I think for those of us who have been in the Mustang hobby for a long time, sorry, yeah, who's just come in, but
Oh, sorry, guys. You have to have a dog in the middle of your virtual meeting at some point. I think that's just an unwritten rule. So hopefully Art will get things settled away here.
Okay, I'm sorry about that, guys. My neighbors were apparently my mail got delivered to them, and I got their mail. So I put their mail at their house. So sorry about that.
No worries.
So I had joined Ford in order to work on Mustang, and I went. You know, they didn't. Ford, it turned out, didn't even. Captain, stop it. Didn't even interview at my school. So anyway, he doesn't usually do this. I'm sorry. You know, I got into Ford. My first job was actually working on Mustang and vehicle development, and then eventually on the launch team of the 79 and 80. I actually supported the 79 Indy pace car. I was responsible for the engine because that was my undergraduate project, was on turbocharged engines. And then I just had a variety of assignments after that, really focusing on either smaller cars like Escorts and or Mustang. I never had a truck rotation. And but you know, in the end, I got to travel around the world. I did eventually become the chief of Mustang, which was a miracle. And in that role, I tried to solve the problem that bugged me for 20 years before that, which was, here we have this great global brand that everybody knows. I mean, everybody knows. Malaysia, Russia, South America, you know, they know what a Mustang is. We've never sold Mustangs in any of those markets. Yet, when I got to Ford, by 1978, when I was there, they had 1 year of profitability in 79. They had 1 or 2 years around the middle 90s when the SN95 came out. But every other year, Mustang lost money. And Paul and Carl probably can remember this time. I mean, every year they tried to cancel the vehicle, or the bean counters would come and try to take something out of it. So I kept thinking, what's wrong with this picture? How could we have this famous vehicle? So we did an analysis, and we found out that the average price that people paid for Mustang was actually less than the average price people paid for Focus. Now, there's something wrong with that picture, right? And we actually also found out that in the end, people were not actually wanting to buy a car. They wanted to buy like instant vacation experience. They're buying a life cycle, a lifestyle. And so the product that we were developing to a large degree was driven by internal considerations, or looking at Camaro or what have you, where in the end, really it was most important that we be the best Mustang we can be, so that people can go out and they leave work and they get that instant vacation. And you know, I don't know if you're all aware, but majority of Mustangs are bought by women. At least they have been for most of the time. When I was at the company, maybe it's changed now. But the Camaro and other vehicles, particularly Camaro, it basically made a vehicle that no woman could buy and could own and could drive. So as a practical matter, you know, the Camaro went out of business. And in 2001 or 2, I can't remember what year exactly, but we could see that coming, and we wanted to, I was afraid of losing that competition in all those magazine covers, right? That's free ads. So we had to create something. We had to change the narrative of the Mustang and make the most Mustang we could. So one of the things we asked people when their instant vacation was, who do you think you are? You know, what is this instant vacation? Describe it. And even women who were young, too young to be alive when he was alive, said, I feel like Steve McQueen. And so we said, we got this idea of, oh my gosh, you know what, we should do, and then about the same time, Design Center did a torque thrust wheel. I always loved torque thrust style wheels. And so Sean Tunt and I, and Tony did a great job with Sean's interviews and stuff. Basically sat there and we said, okay, what we really need to do is do the rest of the car. And so eventually we engaged the McQueen family and their, I call it bleep to bleep lawyer, who was a jerk, but married to his mother, his stepmother. We cut a deal eventually to do this this Bullitt, and they then decided to tie, the studio decided to tie a reissuance of the movie to the car introduction. And so this whole thing sort of started gathering momentum, and when we showed it at the LA Auto Show, it just was a huge hit, and we had to act on it quickly, but we had no money as an engineering team. So I literally funded the thing out of the engineering budget, which is against the rules, but I did it anyway. They can't fire me anymore. We executed the program, and as a complete vehicle. We did not want a paint and tank vehicle. We wanted something that was a complete vehicle, and we wanted to have it so that when you're driving the car, other people who are not in the know would not necessarily realize how special the car was. So we call that sort of Easter eggs. So people could say, I know, and I'm in the know, and therefore this is worth something to me because I'm part of this club, this exclusive club. And we were trying to create that kind of thing. Now, if you had said, okay, 20 years later, we'd be talking about this, we would have said that's impossible. Nobody would even care about these vehicles. But it's great. It just makes my heart happy every time I see any of the Bullitts, because frankly, the fact that there's a 2008 and a 2016, I think is fantastic. I mean, what a great tribute to those of us who took the risk to do the first one, which was wildly unpopular within the company, with the exception of a few people. I couldn't even get Ford Division to support the program or make any commitments at all. And it was only like last year, 2 years ago, that the guy who was the head of Ford Division actually apologized and said the best thing that Ford Division did while he was the head of Ford Division was the Bullitt. And he said, I realized I fought you every step of the way. We basically screwed you, and you went around the system because you had to, but you made it happen. And you saved, because in the end, Bullitt proved that we could have a higher price and also better customer satisfaction. And then it allowed us to then go and do a series production called the Mach 1. Mach 1 was more profitable than the King Ranch pickup truck, F-150. And that allowed us to then convince the company to do the S-197. So if we had not done those vehicles, we would not have saved the Mustang brand. In my opinion, we're still following that pattern. I think what the guys have done since then on that foundation has been spectacular. And so I'm just so really pleased with the work that Team Mustang has done since I left. But that's sort of my story. So I don't know if that's too long, but sorry about that if it is.
No. All right, thank you. I think I really appreciate you setting the tone with that. And I also appreciate the fact that as I ask Paul to share a little bit here, I believe you two obviously had some overlap in responsibilities as the S-197 was going into market, and of course 2008 came around, and of course that's where Paul picks it up. So thank you, Art. No, I appreciate it. It was great. Paul, I'd love to have you take us through the story now and pick it up after the 2001.
So good evening, Tony and team. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, you're coming through fine. Thank you.
Okay, I'm just on audio tonight. So well, just like to thank you for having us tonight, and also thanks and congratulations on a great book. Certainly we enjoy it. A bit about myself. I got 28 years with Ford, and I'm currently the North American Engineering Director. So all the current model products, we have teams designing and releasing all the parts which are going on the vehicles today. But background, I'm originally from the UK, and I joined Ford in 1992 as an NVH engineer. You know, progressing through the company as you do in a big company, I became the chief engineer of Mustang after Art, but there was one person between us. But I had the program from 2002 to 2008. During that period, you know, we launched the 2008 Bullitt, which was just a great buzz action for us. We were working very heavily and intensely on the 2010 at that point. And, you know, the story about the 2008 program was, as the designs were coming together, because, you know, the studio gives the surfaces to the engineers, we have to engineer the parts, and you know, we have to make the parts before the development team gets in the vehicles to set them up. So as that was happening, my development engineers were waiting for the 2010 early prototypes, and they were taking the existing prototypes out on the track, and they called me up and they said, can you come over and spend a couple of hours with us, because we've got something you might like. And that was the start of the 2008 Bullitt. And we added a couple of things like a cold air intake on that. And it was right around the time where I think it was one of the engineers from Art's team earlier had said, why don't we do a Bullitt? Because we're right at the 2008 timeframe. And it all pulled together. And, you know, people like Art had a point of view, and we ended up putting the program together very quickly. And unlike the struggles Art had, we put a package together that sailed through, to be quite honest. And, you know, we were on the back of some pretty good success of 197 at that point. The base V6 and V8 were selling well. But just a great point in my career, you know, having done the Mustang job. The Mustang job got me sent on global travels. I left the US with my family at that point, and actually represented Ford at Mazda for 3 years in Japan, and then went on to the UK, and then went on to China, and finally came back home to the US about 3.5 years ago. And like I said, I'm in product development with North American engineering at the moment. That's myself, and you know, at least an introduction into the 2008 Bullitt story.
Well, thank you so much. One of the things I would love for you to expand on a little bit was when you and I were talking, and of course, you were kind of sharing, you know, how things were just so, you know, busy with the preparations for the 2010 model, and you guys were, you know, full bore in working on the that, and then having the 2008, you know, come up just ahead of that. You've had some time to maybe introspect a little more since that time, particularly since you also have had some global travels now outside of that time. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on, you know, what you think, particularly the 2008 model, you know, has meant to the line of Bullitt models that you've seen. Just some, you know, reflections on after the fact.
So, you know, like I said, the 2010 program, you know, was a major uplift for us, and we were just so focused on that because it's a major program, and you know, the financials are difficult, the engineering's difficult, and you know, just trying to keep the brand with buzz actions fresh, but not doing it with stripes or, you know, a new wheel, doing it with functionals and tying it to the heritage of the Bullitt is what we did when we were out at the track, when my vehicle dynamics lead asked me to go over there and just drive a package that they put together. Now, you know, they put bars on it, they put different tires on it, and you know, we drove it on several tracks down in Dearborn, and it clearly had the handling element that was differentiated enough from the base vehicle to be something that we wanted to move forward with. But at that point, we also said we needed a bit of powertrain action as part of that program. And that's when we got the 15 more horsepower, and we went to the black open air system at the front, and brought it together as a package. And then, like I mentioned before, I think it was Art's prior team said, we're right on track with an anniversary edition for this green vehicle. And at that point, being from England, I had to watch the movie and understand it a bit more, and ask a few people about the heritage. And then that just became a slam dunk to get through the approval process and just go ahead and launch it. And being so close down at the plant as well. And I think, Tony, you joined us on at least one occasion down there.
Absolutely, yes.
Doing things like a unique number that you could put on the line in production was also somewhat special for the customer base as well. And we were able to do that because we got some flexibility down at our flat rock assembly plant at that point. So it all come together really well. And I think I mentioned to you before, as we were talking about, elements of what you were going to put in the book. When you reflect on the 6 years I had Mustang, this is probably one of the most memorable elements of it. And, because the other programs can be overwhelming. They can be fantastic, but they're overwhelming because of the business elements of it. The Bullitt was just a pleasure to bring to the marketplace. And the team momentum we had, and the passion we had around it, coupled with that history, was just terrific. Just one other thing, when we launched the Bullitt, my chief designer was Doug Gafka. Doug and I went out to the LA show, and we launched it at Los Angeles. And him and I went out there, and Alan Mullally had joined the company. I don't know if it was maybe a year, maybe not quite a year, but he was relatively new. And we're sitting in the briefing room, and Alan walks in, and it's my first, time I've sat around a table with him. Just an absolute gentleman, right? And we got briefed, and then we went out on the floor. And, I was hoping to introduce myself to him, and so was Doug, but we never got the opportunity because we had back-to-back interviews from when we walked out on the floor about 9 o'clock until 5 o'clock when the doors closed. This was at LA. And I had to run up to the Ford booth to get us both something to eat between interviews, right? Now, that was in, I think that was in November, was the show. I can't remember exactly, but anyway, very close afterwards, about 2 months later, we went to Detroit. And the Bullitt was one of the key new vehicles on the Ford stand that year, 2008 Detroit, or 2007 in Detroit. And Doug and I went into the briefing room, and we were told, stand here on the Ford stand near the vehicle, and we'll send people over to interview you. We stood there from 9 o'clock in the morning until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And I finally went over to public affairs and said, can we go home because no one wants to talk to us? The difference between auto shows and the vehicle is what I'm trying to contrast. LA, everything was about the product. Everyone wanted to know about the product. Whereas in Detroit, Alan Mullally was the one that they were interviewing. It wasn't us about the vehicle. It was wanting to know what he was doing. And, that was a key contrast for us as part of, launching the 08 program. Well,
I'd say that it's probably good that the folks at LA got the privilege of your time and attention in that vehicle, and maybe just that part of the country, California, Steve McQueen, Bullitt, all those connections. But the team's work, which is one of the things I was so appreciative to hear you tell me about, and their enthusiasm was great. And Art's Art's team helped pave the way, but your team built on the success of the S197 and gave something which I think many enthusiasts all these years later still love the car. Absolutely love it. And so thank you, Paul. I really appreciate that. I wanted to ask Carl next, who a number of years later on to the 6th Gen platform picks up the chief engineer responsibilities. And then Carl, as you were talking to me, you were telling me a lot about, especially because the Mustang was going to be sold worldwide, your kickoff and involvement in that launch, and then how that connected to the idea of a Bullitt around the world. So I'd love you to jump in, a little bit of background if you'd like to share, and then kind of pick the story up there.
So I'm 3rd generation Ford and been at the company now 30 years, which seems like yesterday, right? Designing cylinder heads back in the day. So most of my career has been in vehicle engineering, so vehicle development, sometimes referred to, and then got a call on a Saturday that the Mustang position was open. Of course, accepted it and started a job on a Monday. So that was back in, must have been December of 2015, December 2014. Wow. So finished off the 15 launch and been doing Mustang ever since. And it's one of those things where you start the day, if you push the envelope far enough, have you made the product the best it can be that and you finish the day the same way. Because it's a product that takes a tremendous amount of attention technically. And as Art said, the business is always a challenge, right? The volumes aren't F-Series volumes, and you got to make the most out of everything that you create for the product. And so as I went through the launch in Europe and in Australia, it was interesting to me. I was about 6 months on the job and started doing the roadshow on the global launch of Gen 6. And what's important to understand is about 1/3 of our volume is now export. And when we did the 2015 program, every country got to bid a certain amount of volume. And of course, we ended up like a big job we had was like doubling the capacity, quadrupling the capacity of right-hand drive, Mustang, redoing all the tools to make sure that you could actually make it. So a lot of the countries undercalled what the Mustang influence was. And you could see that as you were just introducing the product. Like Australia, the number 2 selling vehicle in Australia since we launched in 2016 model year, 2015 calendar year, is a Mustang. So it goes Ranger, then Mustang. It's been that way. And you meet people who built brand new dealerships because of all the Mustangs they sold in Australia. So it had impact, as Art said, across the customer base, but all across the Ford network too, and definitely popped up that part of the world. But as you went through and you kind of talked about what Mustang meant to people, it really was interesting to me because each of the presentations was done by each of the regions. So each of them had a slightly different spin, but then every presentation was McQueen and the Bullitt and that discussion of the car chase and every single one of them. In fact, in Europe, they built a pseudo drive-in theater and really drove that point home. And then you'd cycle through every country in Europe had, 15, 20 journalists, which you couldn't believe Switzerland had that many journalists. And so you'd spend, it's a 3-week saga of journalist after journalist after journalist. And you'd find out from that, you took more away of how everybody viewed a Mustang. And it was so interesting in how it was the hyper enthusiastic in that it regenerated you and gave you ideas, because they, of course, would say, this is what a Mustang is, and it would be what the true enthusiast would be, even on a little bit of steroids. So coming away from that, you really got that sense of that was the main bullseye. And honest to God, you call it bullseye in what you do for marketing. So it was really kind of a pun. And so we came back from that experience, and we were developing the 2018, which was a big mid-cycle freshening for us. And it got down to a lot of technology we forced into that program, from active exhaust, because our exhausts are too quiet overseas, and they're saying they were too quiet for regulatory reasons, and that didn't cut it. So what technology can you do to deliver that emotion? And that's why active exhaust became standard in 2018. You know, hood vents had to be on every vehicle. It didn't matter that PEDPRO was a problem. So you got this sense that we really wanted the same vehicle because it was that same emotion sold in every country. And that was a lot what the 18 Mustang was about, was really putting in technology could do that. So while we were doing that, everybody was kicking around the 50th anniversary of the film and the release of the film. And so it was trying to a little bit, what was funny is it was the 50th, and everybody in the team said that was important, but there was also the little pushback of, well, we've done this twice already. Why would we do this again? And so you had to kind of overcome that. And I think what was the final sales pitch, of course, globally, we could make it profitable, but it was always a question, Mustang, and we always have to sell to get it into the cycle plan, because all these buzz actions are stuff that you have to sell on people and try to figure out how you can get teams to do stuff. And, you know, you get recent college graduates to pitch in where you can, and all sorts of workarounds, as Art said, to kind of move the products along. But it was the studio team that did a really cheeky video. And actually, we didn't do a paper, we just did the video. And it was the car that they had designed that virtually, and then it was placed into the chase scene. And so it was hilarious, because they had some other car they were doing a video on for a reveal or something, like something big. And then they had our video right next to it, and it was totally done like 10 times better than the real reveal video for the actual product. And so we got a little razz for that, but we got the program through as an idea. And then after that, you're just like running, because all these programs are really about the team really want to do something. So you really do it in double speed. And, you know, we had Daryl Beamer was our chief designer, and he knew exactly, he'd done Mustangs before for other products. He knew exactly what it was. And the Bullitt is interesting because it's a super light touch. It's not a Shelby. It's an incredible light touch to let the body lines come through. And what we were very fortunate is the body lines, when you park it next to a 69, there's a lot of identical stuff to, you know, the backlight rake is identical on the vehicle. The accentuation of the rear wheel flares, or sorry, doing too much truck stuff. Rear quarters is exactly that general tone of the car. And then, you know, people would pitch in as you went along. So the studio team pulled out the original sample of the yellowish green that was the Bullitt color, and you're like, oh boy, that doesn't look that good anymore. And they came up with a totally new color for us with PPG, which was really dark and with a lot of flake in it, and it really made that body line pop. So you kind of put together that image of the exterior, and then for us, what was important, we really wanted this sound, this experience, and then that was, you know, very much what we wanted to get across. And so we lucked out in powertrain of, hey, how many different parts can you put on a 5-liter to make it work? We ended up with a combination of intake manifolds off of 350 and big throttle bodies and open air boxes. And it was that experience of, we wanted the peak RPM to go all the way out and have max horsepower at that. So when you shift it, you could shift it almost a red line. And so the car is egging you on, because when you think about the chase scene, or that visceral thing, the car is a character, right? And so what we were trying to do with the vehicle on the drive experience is we were trying to make it be part of you, and in everything that you did, it would react, and everything you touched in it would be unique to it. And so, you know, the way the engine goes to red line, and the way you can shift at red line, and then we added we had it pop and burble, which means you let the engine run on. So we had it on into the vehicle. So it would basically yell at you if you come off throttle and say, what are you doing? And, and the open air box worked really well. And we did a unique tune on the active exhaust to make it more linear and just a little tinge of added sound enhancement to linear it out. So it was all about, accelerator and brake pedals and all that to really get on and off that you were tied to that vehicle. The cue ball shifter was the last part in. I think we finally got it made by a defense contractor in Livonia, and we delivered the parts as a quote-unquote on-site mod, which means you built the trucks or the cars and then basically screwed on shifter knobs to them all before they went out. But if you ever pulled one, it's basically sintered copper, so it's massively heavy, and that's what gives that shifter feel to it. So a lot of detail on each individual thing that you touch, from the seats to shifters and all that kind of thing. So when you got in it, you were wrapped around that experience. And of course, the exterior draws you in with just a touch of chrome here and there. So just as always, these buzz vehicles are tremendously fun. Because you get a lot of great stuff. I mean, I don't know how many green threads I looked at. It was crazy. I mean, how do you get the right amount of green? I remember one of the studio guys who had purple pants brought in this super bright green, and you're like, whoa, no, that's not the one, please. So it is a great team effort on these things as always. And, as a chief engineer, you kind of do a little coaching, but it's usually kind of bring out the most in the teams to get that total vision, right? And what's nice about Bullitt is everybody has their own experience. There's only a couple people we had to too young to understand the whole concept, but that was because we had some new kids that were like 25, so you had to kind of coach them up on the general concept, but they got it. But again, tremendously fun program.
Thank you so much, Carl. And again, when I talked to you, and we had some conversations about, how, which I think is what Paul echoed and Art echoed about, this experience that is there that you're trying to create. The people who love these cars, they're just between the look, the sound, and the way that when they drive it, they feel. I mean, even though every team may have implemented it differently, like that spirit, each one of your respective teams captured that spirit across. And it was really cool to listen to Art when he was sharing his story with me, and Paul when he was sharing his story, and you when you were sharing your story. It's kind of remarkable that you all were hitting a target. And if you talk to anyone on here, I'm going to open up the floor. People will tell you those things mean a lot. So we're glad that all three of you had the opportunity to do this for us who buy them. So thank you so much. With that, I'd love to open up for some questions. We've got about 16 minutes. We can take some questions, and please feel free, just jump in, and you can ask a question of any one of these gentlemen, or all three of them, the same question, all three of them, whatever you want to do. So please go ahead.
Hey, Carl, who came up with the Steve McQueen edition for the new Bullitt?
So that was Chad McQueen did a deal with, I can't remember the company he used, but it was basically Chad wanted to do a little bit extra, and he basically cut a deal with the company to build those cars. So he built not a lot of them, but he basically took a Bullitt and then put a supercharger on it. I think it's his general kit and a couple other things. So that was Chad's project.
All right.
Well, Chad has a license to play, so that's the kind of thing we would do.
I'm sure, right? And Art, I'd like to thank you. My best friend has an original 79 4-cylinder turbo pace car, numbers matching, sitting in his garage, all original paint, everything. Beautiful. It's a nice car. We have fun with it.
That's
There you
Paul,
go, Art.
Hey, Paul, is there any upgrades to the Bullitt suspension different from the Mustang GT?
Yeah, we put bars on the back,
Okay,
and we changed the tires as well.
all right. Thank you.
I
More questions for these guys?
just want to say thanks to all the engineers. I enjoy seeing all the different models, and I have a 19 myself. And Art, when you were talking about Easter eggs, that's kind of what I did with my license plate. So my license plate is THX FRNK. And you know the people that understand the Bullitt, because they'll start talking the movie, and then the other people ask you if that was your dad or your grandpa or whatever, and then you get to talk about the movie. So it's kind of fun. And then I did have a question for Carl. I'm just curious, with the puddle lamps, what makes you decide if you're going to use the Mustang logo versus, like on the Shelbys, you have the Cobra. I was just curious if there was ever a thought of having the Bullitt logo as the puddle lamp.
I think we, it was on badging and stuff like that. That light touch, but if you look at a Bullitt, we have quite a few badges on the 19, right? And I think it was that decision that maybe that might have been crossing the line of being a little bit much. We did talk about it. I think someone wanted to do one that was a green Bullitt badge that's basically shine down, something like that. Just trying to balance that light touch or not. And the Cobra, yeah, it's over the top, but people love it.
There you go. Thank you. More questions for these guys?
Carl, can you hear me? Unmuted.
You're good.
Yeah, I was the guy who talked to you down at Carlisle. I told you you were responsible for me buying a 2019 toward the end of the day there on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
Tony knows me too, Tony Shipey. So.
Oh, of course I do. Good to see you.
But nice to see you. Anyway, I guess before long it'll be known how many cars were produced in 2019 and 2020, and then I guess certificates of ownership should be available from Ford show parts. But are those certificates going to have any Ford performance logo on them? I think some people might be a little bit disappointed that the car is totally devoid of that, but at least if it was on the certificate of authenticity, it would be a little something, just an idea.
Okay. I'll follow up with that team. I think that comes out of the marketing group. I'll follow up with them. I'm not sure how they're set up currently.
Okay, that's great. A couple of other things, but maybe I can shoot you an email sometime.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Dave. More questions, because I have one for each of you, Art, Paul, and Carl. I'd like you to answer, but I would like to let some other folks go if you'd like. No? Okay, I'm going to sneak my question in. So this is for the same question for each of you. Which is your favorite Bullitt and why? And you don't have to answer it's your own. Art, take it away.
I was thinking you might go in reverse order. Well, I have to say, just because of the I call it the pirate and disruptive nature of doing the 2001 Bullitt, and the just the fact it was the sort of the I call it the bleeding edge. I personally prefer the 01s, but that's just it's not just because I did it, but just, you know, with a team, but it's because of what it took to do that. And you know, you heard Paul and Carl talk about buzz actions. Actually, the Bullitt was the company's first buzz action. I was one of the leaders of the buzz action team, and we used the Bullitt as a way to get some money. Oops, did I say that? Yeah, so we could get into a different budget. And we had personalization. We got into their budget. When you talk about the numbers, that was the only part that they did with the body numbers. And for people who had a 2001 car, know that if you used a cleaner on the label that was in the car, you wipe the number right off of it, you know, underneath the hood or underneath the rear seat. You know, eventually, everybody found the one underneath the rear seat. But so that's why I like it. And also, I have great memories of jumping in on the hill and the Bullitt chase. We actually had the road closed, and Chad and I were jumping the cars. We ended up turning around selling all those cars, which is
Art. That was one thing that I appreciated you sharing, and that is in the book, that you were one of the people who did also participate in the jump. Jump activity.
Well, we had with the stunt driver did some too, but he had to show us how to do it. I have to say, Carl, that Chad had a lot more reckless abandon than I did, because I knew we were going to sell the vehicles.
There you go. Thank you, Art. Paul, and not to put anyone on the spot, of course.
Yeah, no, Tony, I got a pretty quick answer to that question. If you look at your book, page 71, you've got a brace badge there for 1PP09. PP stands for pre-production. So the 9th unit we built is my favorite vehicle because that's the one we used for sign-off. We signed it off when we went to production.
Ah, okay.
So that met all the specifications that got this program launched. So that's pretty good when you're trying to get these programs delivered for Ford.
I could understand why that would.
While I still got the microphone, you know, Art says he was driving on the release for his vehicle. And I think I told you when we were talking, in 2007, we flew out to do the release of the 8 on the hills, and we used that old fort down on the bay in San Francisco. Well, when we got there, you know, we drove up in a rented vehicle to the event, and no one was shooting the Mustang scene. All this is on the web, by the way, and I think I've sent you the links. But no one was shooting the Mustang scene at that point, and there were, I think it was 4 different vehicles, 4 cars. And just as Doug Gafker and I, you know, he was the chief designer, just as we drove up and got out, and you know, we were introduced to the crew and that, the police came. And at that point, there were 4 drivers for the 4 cars. And within about 5 minutes, one of the drivers was handcuffed in the back of the police car, and the police drove away.
Oh, gosh.
So 4 of the hired stunt drivers for that event went down to 3 very quickly because one had an outstanding warrant, I guess, and you know.
Oh no.
It was a case of, do we carry on or whatever? So I had to drive the 4th car. And luckily enough, Ford had sent me to a couple of schools at that point. And you know, you can see the fruits of that on the web. We were not doing the jumps. That was the stunt drivers. But all the other footage for that release, I had the last car.
Yes, you came squalling in at the end of the at the end of the video. And yes, thank you for sharing that. I've been meaning to put that up on my book website. I've got a media section that I've been waiting to put up there. I'm definitely going to get that link up there so folks can see that. Thank you, Paul. So, Carl, your favorite one, and did you jump or stunt drive your 2019-2020 program?
No, we did the reveal in San Francisco also, but what we did is we gave them the cars and let the media go do it. So they go rocketing through the neighborhoods at, just before dawn is how they got away with doing whatever they wanted to do with the cars without Ford's total knowledge, of course. So no, we didn't sanction jumps in the New World Order of Public Affairs. No, as far as my favorite, I think we were fortunate that we did the 50th and we had Sean's car there at the same time. So we spent a lot of time with that car. That movie car was something else. And if you haven't seen it totally up close, it just blew you away in actually that it had been preserved or rusted in its condition that well. And it was just a kind of a companion for the entire launch piece as we did our launch in 19. So it kind of grew on me, but I didn't have, $3.5 million to buy that one. So I ended up buying a 19 instead. But it probably that one, just because it was so different and so classic at the same time.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, gentlemen, that was a bit of a loaded question. I think each one of you, if you had said to me one of the other ones was your favorite, I'd have probably asked you a little bit more why. But the bottom line is all three of you were part of creating something, which I started following the idea or notion of a bullet back in 2000. So for 20 years, here's three testaments to what you and your teams have done and delivered to us, enthusiasts and owners, and it's a worldwide phenomenon, and just a privilege for me to speak with each one of you about your time, especially Art. I think you would win the award for having to go back the furthest, because the 2001 model, 19 years ago, but everything that each one of you and your teams have done has created, like Art said, an instant vacation. And I think any one of us here on the call would say that. And I know a number of the people on the call here, and we talk very very enthusiastically. We've done it on virtual meetings, but not in person, but this year, but about our experiences with it. So you guys have done something phenomenal.
Well, Tony, I think you've done something phenomenal too with the community. And I do think that Paul's car and Carl's car are fantastic cars. I love all of them. But it's hard to pick out which one you like the best. So, but also you asked what people are doing now. I should tell you what I'm doing now. So the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor made me a professor this year.
Congratulations.
Now I'm a director of automotive engineering for the college, which is one of the top programs in the world actually of this type. So pretty busy.
Fantastic, Art.
So if you have any
Thank you.
Young people that want to study engineering in cars, send them our way.
Congratulations, Art.
Congratulations, Art.
Yeah, that's really great. I think each one of you certainly in your time with Ford Motor Company and in the industry at large, you guys have got great stories, and we love the Bullitt ones. but probably each one of you would have a full book's worth of material on your individual times with Ford Motor Company, and know that there's a lot of people out there that love these cars and Ford vehicles at large. So, again, I'm so appreciative that each one of you have taken the time for me to speak with you so I could get down into book form, but also to be here this evening and take some time out to talk to us. Anything else from anyone?
Tony, I just wanted to tell Art that I work for a Ford dealership here in Willow Grove, Pennsylvania when that 01 Bullitt was coming in. And I got to, when they came off the truck, they had different techs take them out, inspect them, prep them and everything. I got to drive a few, and I even got to drive I was there when the Cobra R came out, which was a nice car also. But I got to see some of them 01s before the actual customer got them, and of course, you got to road test it and everything, but beautiful cars. When that first one came off, I knew I'd own one someday. Not a 01, but I have an 08. I have an 08. I've always been a Ford guy, so I just wanted to say that. I was a mechanic up there and got to see them cars come in off the truck when they came in. Very nice. Thank you very much.
That's what makes it worthwhile.
It does.
Thank you, Charlie.
You're welcome, Tony.
Anyone else?
Question for Art. Just curious as if he's going to, when the show season starts back up, will he be at any Mustang shows or anything like that? Because I have an 01 Bullitt that really needs an Art Hyde signature somewhere.
Yeah, I will be doing shows for sure. The Mustang community is an important part of my life. All of my best friends are associated with it, so I'll be there. I'll be around.
Fantastic.
Thank you. Anything else for Art, Paul, or Carl? No? Okay. Well, I want to thank everyone for joining. And again, Art, Paul, and Carl, thank you for taking the time. You guys are respectively very busy people, but this means a lot to us. And again, I love the Bullets so much. I've got one of each. So I just need that 68. Still trying to get the inspiration, but each one of the models is a fantastic vehicle, and want to thank you again for helping to share your time and energy with us.
So, Tony, which one is your favorite? If you had to just have one, which one would it be?
I can't answer that.
That won't hurt my feelings. Oh, great.
I set up for that one. Oh gosh. No, I can't. They would have to take all of them away because each one of them has something I love about it. We'll leave it at that.
Hey, Tony, it depends on which one you're driving, right? That's your favorite one, right?
Yeah, it does. But each one of them has something special, and there's a spirit in each one of them. So I'm glad. I'm fortunate in that regard. So I don't take that lightly, and appreciate that. Thank you for that question, Art.
Hey, guys.
All right, guys. Oh, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in. Thanks for having me join tonight. I was out in the Bullitt cruising around, and I lost track of time. I was having so much fun up here. I'm from Canada, so I'm the new guy to the Bullitt group here. I've got a 2020. And I live in Ontario, Canada. So thanks for having me, guys. Wonderful job with the Bullets. Wonderful job with the book. So thank you for that. I'm 3/4 of the way through the book. So thanks, guys. You're doing an incredible job. Nice to be part of the family.
Oh, great. Thanks, Todd. I'm sorry I didn't see you jump in there, but glad you could join us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much. Okay. If nothing else, we will go ahead and conclude the meeting. And again, thank you everyone for your participation. And wishing you all a good rest of the evening and a good rest of your week. Thank you
Tony.
again.
Thanks.
Uh,
Good night.
Thanks for having me.
It's been great.
Bye-bye.
It's been
Thanks,
great.
guys.
Bye, Todd. Todd, nice to see you. Nice to meet you.
Nice to see you.
Nice to meet everybody. Thank you very much.
Todd,
Welcome.
Todd, if you see Paul Roca, say hi.
I certainly will. Thank you.
Good night, Tony. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you, guys.
Bye,
You're welcome.
guys.
Thank you, Tony. Bye-bye.
Hey, Tony, can you stay on